Binghamton is a small, peaceful town in northwestern New York known for its historic Victorian architecture and the nickname, the Parlor City. However, it unexpectedly became the center of a shocking murder case in March 2018. The victim was Harley Anderson, a 22-year-old nursing student at Binghamton University, who was in the final months of her program. Her body was discovered in the apartment of her boyfriend Orlando Tercero. Shortly afterward, Tercero fled the United States to Nicaragua, turning the investigation into a difficult international pursuit of justice. Was Orlando truly the killer? What was the real motive behind the crime? Right now, we're going to dive deeper into the case of Harley Anderson, tragedy in the dorm room, to uncover the truth. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss any of the upcoming thrilling cases. Thank you all so much. It all started when Harley Anderson's friends couldn't get in touch with her. At first, it was just a passing concern, but as the afternoon wore on, Harley's silence gradually turned into real worry. She wasn't answering her phone, and more importantly, she had missed her evening poetry class, a class she had never skipped before. In the midst of their concern, the group suddenly remembered that Harley used the Find My Friends app. When they checked it, they were stunned to discover that Harley's last known location wasn't at her apartment, but at the apartment of Orlando, the boyfriend she had been dating. Overwhelmed with worry, the group of friends rushed to Orlando's apartment. When they got there, the place was completely dark. The door was locked tight, and Orlando's car was gone from its usual parking spot. Sensing that something was terribly wrong, the girls made a bold decision. They climbed through a window to get inside. But the scene that met them as they stepped into the apartment left them frozen in shock. Harley, their close friend, was lying motionless on the floor, showing no signs of life. In a panic, the girls quickly called the police. Before we dive into the complex twists and turns of the investigation, let's take a moment to learn about the life of Harley Anderson, the young woman whose promising future was tragically cut short at the age of 22. Harley Anderson was born on May 9, 1995, in Westbury, New York, the youngest daughter in her family. She grew up surrounded by the love of her parents, Gordon and Karen Anderson, and her older sister Madeline. From a young age, Harley was known as a lively, energetic, and hardworking girl who loved music and always had a bright smile on her face. She was full of kindness and had a natural ability to make friends wherever she went. With her confidence and openness, Harley always carried a special kind of charm. In 2013, she began her journey at Binghamton University, pursuing her dream of becoming a nurse. To support herself during college, she took a part-time job at a campus coffee shop. But that job was only a temporary stepping stone. Harley had already received a job offer from Northwell Hospital, a prestigious medical center, for after graduation. In her final year of college, Harley began dating Orlando Tercero, a 22-year-old man with dual citizenship in the United States and Nicaragua. Orlando was a rather mysterious figure, frequently traveling between Nicaragua and Miami. Although she was happy with Orlando, Harley made it clear that she wasn't looking for a serious, committed relationship while still in school. Before Orlando, she had dated Kevin Ocampo, and it was actually Kevin who had introduced Harley to Orlando. Although they shared some happy moments together, Orlando often showed jealousy whenever Harley spent time with another guy. In fact, just running into an ex-boyfriend would make him show up at Harley's place unannounced, sitting out on the balcony, smoking with a visibly angry look on his face. One September morning in 2017, Harley woke up to find all 4 of her tires slashed. The damage cost her over $600 to fix, a hefty sum for a self-supporting student like Harley. She immediately suspected Orlando since she had run into her ex-boyfriend the night before, and Orlando knew about it. Given his jealous nature, Harley was almost certain Orlando was behind it. She posted the whole incident on Snapchat, and not long after, Orlando messaged her with a suggestive tone. "Oh, funny you say that, my tires just got slashed too. What a coincidence, huh?" The situation grew even more suspicious when Harley threatened to call the police instead of sounding surprised or worried. Orlando coldly replied, "I don't think that's a good idea." Orlando's words only made Harley feel more uneasy. What made things even more suspicious was that Orlando never reported his own tires being slashed to the police, even though he claimed they were damaged, just like Harley's. Harley understood that if she made a big deal out of it, Orlando could face expulsion from school. So despite feeling worried and upset, she decided not to report the incident to the authorities. Although they went through many difficult moments, Harley never completely ended her relationship with Orlando. They still treated each other like friends, and Orlando remained a presence in her life. However, Harley's friends were never quite sure about the nature of their relationship. They only knew that Harley and Orlando still saw each other from time to time. On March 7, 2018, Harley Anderson was enjoying the final months of her college life. It was a time full of pressure but also excitement, a memorable period that anyone who's been through it cherishes. That night, Harley and her friends held a small gathering at her place, sharing wine and playing board games late into the night. Around 3:00 a.m., Harley suddenly left and went to Orlando's apartment. Security cameras captured her entering the apartment with Orlando at 3:35 a.m. What happened after that? Inside the apartment remains shrouded in mystery. About 7 hours later, at 10:48 a.m., security cameras caught Orlando leaving the apartment alone. Just a few minutes later, he returned with a bottle of melatonin, a sleep aid medication. A few hours after that, the cameras recorded Orlando going down to the basement and then quickly coming back up to the apartment. At that time, he left behind a note written in Spanish with haunting words. "I never thought I would do this. I'm sorry, Dad. We will see each other again soon." Orlando's father had passed away many years earlier. The letter seemed to suggest his intention to end his own life, hoping to be reunited with his father in the afterlife. Meanwhile, a growing sense of unease settled over Harley's friends. As mentioned before, they used a phone location app to track her down and quickly headed to Orlando's apartment. The place was pitch dark. The door locked tight and Orlando's car was nowhere to be found in the parking lot. Fearing the worst, the girls decided to break a window to get inside. Once inside, they were met with a horrifying scene. Harley lay motionless on the bed, showing no signs of life. Overwhelmed with panic, they immediately called the police. As soon as they received the call, the police quickly arrived at the scene, secured the area, and launched a thorough investigation. Every piece of evidence related to this serious crime was carefully collected. However, few knew that this wasn't the first time the police had come to Orlando's apartment. On that same day after committing the crime, Orlando had messaged his sister confessing his terrible actions. Worried sick about her brother, Orlando's sister called the police, but when the officers knocked on the apartment door, there was only silence, no answer at all. Unable to get inside, the police had no choice but to leave. A few hours later, the Binghamton police arrived at Orlando's apartment again, this time alerted by Harley's friends after they discovered her body there. During a thorough search of the apartment, the police found a metal hook hanging on a door frame with a necktie attached. Investigators believed Orlando may have attempted suicide, but failed because the tie slipped off the hook, causing him to fall and hit his head. However, as soon as the police identified Orlando as the prime suspect, he quickly fled the scene, heading straight to JFK International Airport to fly back to Nicaragua, his second homeland. Orlando's escape made the case far more complicated. Usually, if a suspect is caught in the country where the crime took place, the trial will proceed under that country's laws. But when the suspect flees abroad, extradition depends on treaties between the countries involved. However, Nicaragua does not have an extradition treaty with the United States, making it extremely difficult legally to bring Orlando back to the U.S. for trial. As a dual citizen, Orlando has the freedom to travel between both countries. The Nicaraguan government is under no obligation to extradite him to the U.S. upon their request. This situation plunged Harley Anderson's family into despair. The chance of bringing Orlando to justice in the U.S. seemed bleak because of the lack of an extradition treaty, making the U.S. request very difficult to pursue. The final decision rests entirely with the Nicaraguan authorities, who may choose to try Orlando under their own laws. This put tremendous pressure on Harley's family and the U.S. investigators. Meanwhile, American forensic experts continued gathering evidence to strengthen the case file, hoping to create another opportunity to bring Orlando to justice in the U.S. The official autopsy confirmed that Harley died from asphyxiation. Her body, especially her neck and arms, showed multiple bruises, indicating she fought fiercely during the attack. Surveillance footage also confirmed that Harley died during the time she was with Orlando at the apartment. Orlando fled to Nicaragua and was picked up at the airport by his mother. However, it remains unclear whether she knew about her son's criminal actions. The U.S. quickly issued an international arrest warrant, and shortly after Orlando was apprehended at a hospital in Nicaragua. Back at Binghamton University, a somber mood settled over the campus. To honor Harley's memory, the school decided to pause all classes for the senior nursing students. News of Orlando fleeing to Nicaragua quickly spread, focusing public attention in the U.S. on the response of the Nicaraguan authorities. Initially, Orlando was admitted to a psychiatric hospital due to his history of a failed suicide attempt. However, after being cleared as mentally stable, he was transferred to El Chipote prison in Managua. The U.S. immediately requested Orlando's extradition to face trial seeking the maximum sentence of life imprisonment. However, Nicaragua rejected the extradition request and declared they would try Orlando under their own laws for the charge of murdering a woman, making the case even more complicated and tense. At the trial, Harley's mother and her friends took the stand one by one, describing Orlando as an extremely jealous and possessive man. He frequently called to harass and control Harley. Even the earlier tire-slashing incident was linked to him. U.S. investigators believe it was Orlando's blind jealousy, fear of losing Harley, and obsessive possessiveness that led to his criminal actions. All these signs, combined with surveillance footage from outside Orlando's apartment, painted a clear picture of his crime. There was almost no doubt Orlando was the one who killed Harley. Throughout the trial, Orlando was closely monitored to prevent any attempt to escape. However, his attitude seemed quite indifferent, showing no signs of being shaken by the tense courtroom atmosphere. Orlando even tried to justify his actions by blaming alcohol. He claimed that he had drunk excessively on the night of the incident, which led to a loss of control. But when asked if he had ever been in a similar state before, Orlando couldn't provide any evidence or explanation to back up his claim. Interestingly, Orlando's friends in Nicaragua had a completely different view of him. Many insisted that Orlando was a gentle, warm person who loved Harley deeply, making it hard to believe he could harm the woman he cared for. After about an hour and a half of carefully reviewing the evidence and testimonies, the Nicaraguan court delivered its final verdict. Orlando was found guilty of murdering a woman and sentenced to the maximum penalty under Nicaraguan law, 30 years in prison. However, right after the sentencing, Orlando filed an appeal requesting a reassessment of his mental health. The court rejected this request, stating there was no reasonable basis to overturn the verdict. In a separate development, the Brampton District Attorney's Office in New York, U.S., immediately issued an international arrest warrant for Orlando and declared they would continue to seek his extradition to the U.S. to face trial with the maximum sentence of life imprisonment. This means that even though Orlando was convicted in Nicaragua, he could still be arrested and face another trial in the U.S. if he ever returns, regardless of whether he has served his sentence in Nicaragua. For Harley's family and friends, the sentence handed down to Orlando, while somewhat easing their pain, could never fill the void left by their loss. Harley will always be remembered as a smart, vibrant young woman who was loved by everyone around her. At the graduation ceremony, where Harley would have proudly received her nursing degree, her father took the stage in her place to accept an honorary diploma, amid a deeply emotional and sorrowful atmosphere. Looking back at the whole case, it's clear that Orlando's decision to flee to Nicaragua didn't help him escape justice. In fact, it made his sentence even harsher. Prisons in Nicaragua are notorious for their harsh conditions, danger and violence far worse than those in the U.S., especially El Chipote prison in Managua, where Orlando was held. Surprisingly, some of Orlando's friends in Nicaragua still believe in his innocence. This has left many people puzzled, especially those who have followed the case from start to finish. After walking through the heartbreaking events of this story together, many believe that Orlando's motive stemmed from blind jealousy and uncontrollable hatred. The brave actions of Harley's friends, who were determined to break into Orlando's apartment to find her, stand as the clearest proof of true friendship and dedication. Because real friends never abandon each other in times of trouble. Harley Anderson's heartbreaking story is not just a case. It's a powerful warning about toxic relationships where jealousy and control can cross every boundary. These are warning signs we often overlook until it's too late. Harley, a smart and vibrant young woman, didn't recognize the danger lurking in her relationship, and in the end she paid the ultimate price with her life. What about you? What do you think about the bold decision of Harley's friends to break into Orlando's apartment? Do you believe the 30-year sentence Orlando received is truly deserved, especially compared to the potential sentence he might face if tried in the U.S.? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Also, if there's a case you'd like the channel to explore and make a video about, don't hesitate to suggest it. Your feedback is a huge motivation for the channel's growth. Thank you for listening to today's story. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so you won't miss out on more gripping cases.